Okay, let's go.
Why don't we start with what your name is?
My name is Bobbie Beuke. I was Roberta Aho. And I was in high school when the war started. So I remember everything about Pearl Harbor and everything, you know, but we didn't know much about where things were.
Okay. What were you doing at the start of the war?
In high school.
You were in high school?
Mm-hmm. And some of the boys in the upper grades, they had to go because they were 18. So the senior class, unless they, you know, couldn't pass or something, they were mostly all gone. So the prom was pretty scarce at that time. You know. So, of course, I didn't go to them because I wasn't, you know, old enough. But
So there wasn't that many guys to choose from for prom and stuff?
no.
No.
Well, everything was on the radio then about the news, you know. And, well, then pretty soon, Japan was first, and then we were into that war, and then we went into the European war with England and Russia, and we needed Russia because they had to help us fight the Germans, you know. And later on they turned against us.
Yeah.
But we'd listen to the radio all the time what everything was. And I had all my cousins, they were in the war. I had a lot of older cousins. I mean, they all came back, but I remember this one in particular, he was waiting to go into Berlin. You know, they had done all the fighting, and but then they were going to march in Berlin, and this was going to be an honor for them to march through Berlin. But he had to come home because his mother took cancer and she was dying, so he got home. And anyway, my mother and I would listen to the radio at night, you know, where they were, and I can remember we were so engrossed in German and Russia beating the Germans, and Germany had two fronts with the Americans and the Russians, and it was back to Stalingrad, and that was the turning point of it. They didn't make it. They got froze to death up there.
Yeah, pretty cold up there.
It was cold, and they had summer rations, you know. It sounded terrible. And then we were listening to that all the time. We didn't really know anything about the Jews until after the war. And then
Right.
it all came out.
That
And of course, you thought it was terrible. I can remember BE Day. That
Loud truck. Keep interrupting us.
was BE Day was when we won the European. A big celebration.
Victory in Europe.
Oh yes, everybody. I can remember being down by Schrader's.
The autos, that furniture store?
Yes,
Yeah.
right there, and we were all celebrating in the street and everything. And I can remember he owned a store. He came down the street and he was pretty drunk, and he ran right into autos.
He ran into it?
Well, this corner of the house.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't hurt it, but hit the well, you know, it didn't break or anything, you know, but I can remember that incident. So.
That's awesome.
And then a couple months later, we had, I don't remember how much difference there was between that time anymore, but then we had VJ Day, and then we celebrated again. So. And you know, that war was over in 4 years. I mean, in 42 to 45, and well, we have wars that just last forever. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that's political or not. You know, I don't follow that stuff. So.
That's very interesting, Grandma. I didn't know that you had like those stories from back
Oh,
then.
we had everything was rationed.
Mm-hmm.
Your gas was rationed. You got cards, so many gallons. You knew what you did. The farmers got more because they had tractors and things like that. But in town, and you were rationed your shoes. You only got, I think, one pair a year. If that was it, I don't know. Don't remember anymore. But you couldn't afford much more than one pair a year anyway.
Yeah.
So, and really. And the food was rationed. You didn't have any sugar. You had to do without sugar. And there were stamps for everything, you know. And you go to the store and meat was rationed.
Mhm.
You could get, I can remember Polish sausage. We ate a lot of Polish sausage. And, oh, good. And you go to the store, and we had a lot of veal too. We could get that, but
Yeah.
not beef. Couldn't get beef, you know, but we survived, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And, probably had a lot of soup and things like that, you know. But
Yeah.
I can remember. Of course, we had uniforms when we went to school, so it wasn't clothes wasn't the problem, you know. So, but we had our school days and our fun.
Do you, during World War II, do you remember what the public thought of the enemy, thought of the Germans and the Japanese?
Yeah, we hated them.
Hated them?
Oh, yeah. And I think the Japanese was worse than the Germans were,
Mhm.
you know. So.
Since this is a German community, do you know of anyone that had relatives fighting for the Nazis over in Germany during World War II?
Well, they probably did,
Yeah,
but I don't know. You know.
you didn't know any.
But they had a lot of people here that were German descent, you know,
Mhm.
and kind of made fun of them. Or, you know, if they said something they didn't like, they let them know, you know.
Yeah.
And so they had to keep their mouth shut a lot of good times. You know, so.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it was all, you know, you didn't have television yet, you know, so it was all really hate.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember.
What did people do for entertainment during the wars if there really wasn't
Well,
television?
you know, if you were kids, you were at school,
Mhm.
you did basketball games, volleyball games, that was your entertainment, you know, like it is now, you know. And I don't think, I went to the Catholic school, and we didn't have any track or anything then, you know, at our school. We were just starting with football. Of course, I graduated in '46, so, you know, the war was just over. You know. And, it was quite a time. I mean, and you were very involved in knowledge of it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so many of them didn't come back. You know. All my relatives came back.
Mhm. How many relatives did you have that served in either over in Europe or fighting against the Japanese? Quite a few.
At least 10, 15
Mhm.
boys. And they went in at different times, you know, like that. So. Yeah, we survived it, though.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember seeing any propaganda posters in Washington here for the war?
Yeah, you had a lot of them. You know, you were very
Mhm.
we were very patriotic. Yeah, you know, it's not so much that now. We don't know why we're in wars, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Mostly political. And, but they hurt us and we were going to kill them, you know. And, well, Japan wasn't going to give up until the atomic bomb, you know.
Mhm.
They had to do that to them. They were going to fight to the finish.
Did Washington ever experience any blackouts because of the war?
I think we did. I think we did it. I'm not real sure about that. maybe we had, these runs, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever remember seeing trains of soldiers coming through?
Oh, yes.
Oh, you saw that?
Yeah, and we had places around here that were prisoners.
Yeah. That,
Yeah, they liked it here because they were fed good and everything. And they had to do things. They would work on some levees or something, railroad tracks, work out something like that.
do you ever remember seeing any of them working? The
No.
German prisoners?
No,
No.
I wasn't near that,
Mm-hmm.
But you saw a lot of them going through trains and things, going to California.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was done then by trains. You didn't fly anywhere. And there was a lot of troop trains.
Mm-hmm. What were your parents' thoughts of the war? Were they for it? Were they against it?
Oh, yes, you were for it.
You're-
I was German.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Do you ever remember them talking, discussing about it? Anything about the war, what was going on?
You only heard of what was on the radio or in the paper, you
Mhm.
heard that, but you had what they wanted you to know anyway, We didn't know how many dead, stuff, because I remember the war was just about over, and then the Germans had a counter thing, or what do you want to call it, and that was called the Battle of the Bulge, and it was
Mhm.
northern Germany, and we didn't have enough troops up there, and we really got beaten back. A lot of boys died, Yes, but we got that corralled or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember one boy that died in the Battle of the Bulge here.
Here in Washington?
And there's kind of a lot of.
Yeah.
And then if you had somebody in your family, you had a gold star and a blue star hanging in your window.
Mm-hmm.
And if you got killed, you got a gold star.
Mm-hmm.
So,
You remember that? Seeing any of those around town here?
sometimes they would have 2 or 3 gold stars on the same thing,
Oh.
because it was all in those boys, and then it would have one gold one and got killed.
Mm-hmm. Did you, when you were in school, did you ever write letters to soldiers, or
No, I
never
didn't.
did that?
My mother did. A lot of nephews she
Mhm.
had. She would, of course, all their things were confiscated. That they would be, what they didn't want you to know, that would be scratched out.
Mm-hmm.
The army and the government did that. They couldn't. Maybe they would tell them a secret or something. So
Right.
some people would get these letters that everything was scratched out. They had their names signed and everything, and they just had to keep going, walking every place, Had your gun and your rations and that, and sleep. You just slept when you got tired. I mean, when you could stop.
Yeah.
And sometimes you were fighting days, So.
Mm-hmm.
But,
What were the negative effects of the war on you?
In your family?
Well, I didn't like Germany. I didn't like Japan. Now, we're friends with everybody, but back then you weren't.
And the downtown shoe factory developed and made shoes for the soldiers.
Oh yeah, the International made all of his boots.
Uh-huh.
All the boots for the International. Yeah, they all went to Germany. Now the other shoe factory down there, that was mostly ladies' shoes.
Mm-hmm.
That came up later.
Do you have any funny stories or interesting trivia about Washington during the war and your own experiences? Did anything funny happen, because of the war over here? Celebrations?
There's a lot of parties and things after. I'm sure the bells rang, and all the church bells rang when the war was over,
Yeah.
And boys will be coming home, They were really heroes when they came home, And now the sad part is that they're not considered anything, I mean, they don't want the war. People don't want kids to go. But I was only 16 and up to 18. Some of the boys in my grade went, but because they were older, they, didn't start school as early. I don't know what, but they were 18 and they could go.
Mm-hmm.
So you felt bad when they had to leave. At that time, you were all thought about your high school. You didn't. You just thought about basketball games and the ball games and that kind of stuff. That was your main concern.
Mm-hmm.
But food was really rationed too. That was hard. Of course, we had gardens and the canned and everything like that, so we didn't.
The Victory Gardens, you had those around here, yeah.
Yeah, we always had a garden. We had Victory Gardens before it was a Victory Garden, so we had a can a lot.
Yeah.
And that.
We're kind of gonna jump back, but do you remember where you were and when Pearl Harbor was attacked? Do you remember your exact location or hearing about it? How did you hear about it? Through the radio?
Mm-hmm.
Was the whole town just in shock of
Yeah.
Washington? Yeah.
We had lost so many ships and everything over there.
Mm-hmm.
And then we weren't prepared, definitely wasn't prepared over there for the Japanese. We weren't expecting that.
Mm-mm.
And they beat us really bad, and beat us back, and there was march to Bataan and everything like that. A lot of them got killed. And a lot of people, Americans on islands over there, they were missionaries or something like that for these people, and they were put in camps, died.
Mm-hmm.
And just because of the American, they didn't trust anybody.
Right.
I remember we went to church and prayed a lot. We had services on Tuesdays and Fridays, and we would go pray there for the boys to come home and not get killed. We did that a lot.
We're gonna kind of jump back about the blackouts. Do you remember? Did the sirens ever go off and you guys practice like bombing raids or anything like that?
I don't remember that.
You don't remember?
Probably did.
Yeah.
Of course, we're kind of in the middle
Mm-hmm.
here. I'm sure in New York and on the East Coast they did.
Yeah.
West Coast, they had to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Were there Nazi sympathizers in Washington?
Anyone that was for the Nazis that you know of, or did they just kind of keep quiet?
Well, even the people that were they were from Germany or they spoke. You better not use German language here anymore. You couldn't do that. But if they said anything, they were proud. Everybody was against the Germans, and that's I know.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was only 16 and 18, so you'd have to really ask somebody older.
Mm-hmm.
I know my mother used to correspond with a priest in Germany, and he wrote letters of how bad it was over there.
So, Okay, we'll talk about after the war. So, let's see. What were your thoughts when the war ended? I know, I bet you were really
Really, yeah.
enthusiastic about it ending. But,
Yeah, it ended and everybody was coming home, you know, big celebration.
Mhm.
And I know the boys that wanted to get married, we had you couldn't find places to rent, you know. We had a hard time finding 2 or 3 rooms to rent.
Mhm.
But everybody was welcome home. They were big heroes. And then I don't know if they could get jobs, you know. I think they got so much money from the government,
Mhm.
paycheck or something. I think you'd have to ask somebody older than me about it.
How quickly did things change once the war ended over here? Did rationing, was that still going on? Or were you allowed to have more gas, more food,
I guess
things like that?
I don't remember that part of it.
Yeah.
I remember it being rationed, you know.
Um, yeah, almost. It's good. So you've seen a lot since you were born to now. There's lived through so many different wars.
Well, it's just the Second World War, and then
The Korean,
Vietnam. Yeah.
But were people treated differently because of their heritage in this area?
No.
Like if you had someone that wasn't of German heritage here in town, did people kind of look on them like maybe they could be?
No, but listen, you had, even if you were German heritage, your kids had to go to the service,
Right.
and they wanted to fight. They didn't.
Mhm.
We didn't know how bad Hitler was, you know, because he was overrunning everything, you know.
Mhm.
And especially the Jews, they were all killed.
When did Washington find out about the Jews during World War II? Did that all come out right after the war?
I think so.
Do you remember hearing that through the radios and people just couldn't believe it?
Yeah. Well, see, we didn't have television then, so
Yeah.
yeah, it was in the radios and that.
Mm-hmm. I think we've got a lot of the questions done, so we're just reviewing our questions real quick. I think we have all, but yeah, I think we got a lot of the questions. But whenever World War II first started and it ended, when it first started, did Washington as a whole change because of the war? Like, were people more?
The people were gone.
more-
All the boys were gone.
Mhm.
You know, we really had a lot of boys gone. So that was a big celebration when they all come home. You know.
Mhm.
Pictures were in the paper, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And this one came home, that one came home.
And I remember hearing a story over at Autos. They brought out a piano and started playing that in the middle. You remember that?
Yeah.
Gosh, that's awesome.
We had a big dance in the middle of the.
Mm-hmm. Was there a big parade when the boys from the service came home?
I don't know if there was a parade or not. There's a lot of things, parties going on where they were honored. You know.
Yeah.
They'd come in and their uniform, wear their uniform, and then they introduce this one came home, and that kind of stuff. You know.
Yeah. That's awesome. Anything else? We good? Because we got 25 minutes. Any more? Let's see. Okay. What rules or laws did you have to follow because of the war? Do you remember any of them? Any kind of laws, special regulations? I know there was rationing and things like that, but was there anything else because of the war?
Well, I remember you couldn't get things like if you wanted a car, you couldn't get that.
Really?
Because that was rationed.
Uh-huh.
It's not rationed, it just didn't make it. Everything went to the war effort. And like a wash machine, you couldn't get parts for that, you know. I can remember Grandpa worked at there was a laundromat. It was where the Chamber of Commerce is now.
Mm-hmm.
That was the laundromat. And he would drive this truck around, like through Gilda House, and those people would put all their dirty clothes in a big, long sack, and they'd bring it here and they'd get washed. And then he'd have to take it to their houses, and then they'd hang it on their line, because they couldn't get, most of the places didn't have electricity at that time. They had, they would have a jump start or, you know, I can do it.
Yeah.
Motorcycle,
Yeah, one of those.
something that kind of, and you couldn't get a wash machine and stuff like that. You waited, you know, or patched up what you had.
Mm-hmm.
Those kind of things were rationed, you know. I don't know about farm machinery. I guess you could get that. Cars you couldn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's really interesting hearing all this because, you know, I'm 18 years old and never even heard any of this stuff. It's just amazing that, you know, you've seen so much and you lived through this. It's awesome. It's pretty cool. Like my dad didn't tell me stories that you told him and stuff, so it's pretty cool sitting here interviewing you like this, learning.
And you really have to really find somebody that's older than me, that they could tell you more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, you could just get so much flour. I don't know if flour was rationed, but yes, it was. You know, you had everything rationed.
Mm-hmm.
And stores just didn't have it, you know.
Right. Yeah, Grandma, I think we got all the questions in for you. If there's anything else you'd like to add about it?
I think I think of it right now.
Yeah, that's good. Well, we appreciate you
Yeah.
doing this for us.
Thank
It's
you so
awesome.
much.
Thank you for
And this,
asking me.
yeah. No, I'm not sure, but this may go to the Washington Historical Society because what they're doing, they're gathering interviews and they can compile it together for people that live through this kind of stuff and share their stories. So that's awesome. Now I'm gonna stop it. So, I'm gonna say a little thing to the camera.
No,
Okay. Yeah. All right.